the Aperture Field, a place for seeing clearly and thinking about what matters. This is Carrie Lamotte sharing a spoken version of a written piece called The Villainous Hero, when saving the day quietly destroys the system. We all recognize the hero, the leader who storms in when things are falling apart, the maverick who takes on what nobody else will, or the founder and the executive and fixer who shoulders the impossible load and somehow makes it all work. In Western culture, we revere this archetype. They're decisive, tireless, action-oriented. When others hesitate, they move. When systems wobble, they stabilize them, often at great personal cost. Organizations reward these people again and again because they get things done when no one else can. They save the day. But that success hides a deeper and more dangerous pattern. We tell ourselves that many hands make light work, but often the work was never light at all. It was carried by one or two people whose capacity masked a systemic failure. The hero didn't just act. They absorbed what the system itself couldn't hold. And because the crisis passed, the structure itself never had to change. The shadow side of this archetype isn't subtle anymore. We see it everywhere. Burnout, chronic pain and illness, strained marriages, kids who grew up resenting parents who were always saving something somewhere. Entrepreneurs and leaders are statistically more prone to anxiety, depression, and exhaustion than the general population, not because leadership itself is inherently destructive, but because heroic overfunctioning becomes an identity. Saving broken systems becomes how worth is measured, and once that identity is in place, stepping back feels impossible. Because if you stop rescuing, who are you? And here's the uncomfortable truth. The hero doesn't actually prevent fires. They make it possible for the system itself to keep lighting them. When someone repeatedly steps in at the point of crisis, the early warning signs are never dealt with. Unclear roles remain unclear. Broken structures remain broken. And the system learns unconsciously, but very effectively, that it does not need to adapt because somebody else is going to carry it. But real leadership happens before the fire. Leadership is not the dramatic moment when everything is about to collapse. Leadership lives in the micro decisions long before that moment, in how the work is structured, in how responsibility is assigned, and in what discomfort a leader is willing to allow. So the real questions for a leader aren't, how do I save this? But actually, who is allowed to carry how much? What friction is tolerated instead of absorbed? Where does responsibility actually sit? And what happens when someone does not step in? Leaders aren't there to carry the system. They're there to design the system so no one has to. Healthy systems distribute load early, not heroically late. They allow discomfort before catastrophe. They let small failures teach. They require each person to hold their share of the weight, no more and no less, and to remain accountable for it. When this happens, there's no need for saviors because there's no blaze that requires one person to run into the flames. And this is the important part. The villain in the villainous hero archetype isn't the person, it's the timing. When leaders repeatedly intervene too late at the point of collapse, they unintentionally undermine the very resilience they believe that they're protecting. What looks like strength is often structural dependency, and because the hero is capable, the damage remains hidden until the body, the family, or the system finally refuses to continue. So instead of asking, who will save the day, try asking, what micro choices allowed the day to need saving at all? And more personally, where do I step in before I'm asked? Where do I absorb friction to keep things running smoothly? And where does my competence prevent others from developing theirs? And these are uncomfortable questions, but they are the questions that dismantle the hero trap. Leadership isn't about carrying more, it's about carrying correctly. Like a rowing shell that's lifted by many hands, when each person takes only their portion of the weight, the load feels almost light. When one person compensates for everyone, it becomes crushing. The goal is not to drop the boat. The goal is to stop lifting weight that was never yours to carry. So if you recognize yourself at all in this archetype, it's not a call to abandon responsibility. It's a call to change where in the timeline you intervene. Not at the blaze, not at the first spark, or even earlier. At the design of the system itself. Because intervening at the point of crisis looks like strength, but intervening at the point of design, that's leadership. This has been The Aperture Field. You can find the written version of this piece and other notes on Substack at The Aperture Field. And if you'd like to explore these ideas more deeply, there's a companion podcast where I go further into the patterns behind the work. Thanks for listening, and see you soon. Music by Pavel Bakirov.